Welcome to the Crafty Mini, and in this video, a bit of a product review. So I'm looking at the dirty down paints, the moss and the rust effects. I've used these a couple of times. I've noticed some issues with user error mainly. So in this video I'm going to go through how you can go about and fix that. Now, one of the first things when you get this stuff, it stinks. Absolutely reeks, so use it in a well ventilated area. The solvent that's in there, which I assume it makes the paint gives the effect that it does, is due to that. Now, one of the other things, there are agitators, however, give them a really good mix, and you'll see in the video now that I'm actually stirring in the bottom of the bottle as well, because I've noticed the agitators get stuck quite a bit. So yeah, make sure you give them a really good mix, really thorough. There's a lot of good videos out there that I've seen on YouTube and other things, and they mention stuff like obviously the temperature that it is. So if the touch warmer, it reacts quicker. And then I noticed as well a few times that the paint would come out almost like a sludge. So that's why there I'm just doing a little bit of a test piece. Make sure it's flowing nicely off the brush. Now this is the lid of my wet palette, so a bit of a tip to start with. Cover it in a bunch of different bits of sprue, textures, sand, dirt, old bits. There's all sorts of things on there. You can use this as a dry brush palette and various other things, and you know, see how like washes will affect and look on the miniature if you paint like whatever base coat is and things. So it's a really good thing to do, and the fact that it's on the wet palette means it's not taking up any extra space. Now, what I've used for this is I've just given it a bit of silver over the top, and then I'm going to paint the rust effect straight on. Now, in a few different areas where I've got like metal panels, just some of the sort of rubbly texture and some other few bits, and then some of the areas I'm putting it on really thick, and others I'm just brushing it on because I want to see how it dries and what sort of effects it has when it's actually when it's completely set. And what we'll do in this video, so it's going to be a bit of a long one, there'll be bits where I don't talk, so I'm going to let this play real time so you can actually see on camera the dirty down paints, actually how they're reacting when they're actually put onto a model, as it were. So this rust in particular, I've noticed it's really nice. It dries beautifully. And if you put it on thick, it looks like a really gnarly sort of old, if you imagine like an old engine block, and then it just looks really nice. You can then go back with water and reactivate it, and you can see here that I'm just brushing around, moving the paint about, and you'll actually bring it back up. Now you'll obviously still leave a stain there, but when you push it in, it's almost as if the pigment turns to like almost like a gel, and you can push it all together so you get these really thick ridges of rust. That's a really nice effect. So I'm just practicing with a few things now on the wet palette, and you'll see it dry, and it goes from different varieties of some orange right the way up to a really thick dark brown, and almost like and some places it'll dry like a crust of rust, which is a cracking effect that looks really good on a miniature, which we'll see later on in the video. And on this next bit now, I'm just putting it on really thick, so I've overloaded the brush just because I want to see how different applications, if we thin this right down, how it's going to look. I mean, just as an initial, it's a lovely sort of colour filter that you can put on something, and just as a colour itself, there's a video coming out next week where I'll really use this stuff quite heavily because I'm trying to go full grim dark. But it looks really nice. And again, that middle bit, sort of bottom right, you can see where I've pushed it around, it's starting to dry now. I'll put a little graphic on the screen. That's looking really nice, right? So you've got a nice thick layer and then it comes out. Now with the moss, I'm going to do the same sort of thing on this palette. Now, I don't know whether I've just got a dodgy batch or this is human error. If anyone knows, let me know in the comments. But I'm really finding it's difficult for it to dry mossy. Now, it could be that I need to add multiple layers, which is something else I'm practicing with. But I've noticed that the pigment or whatever it is they use in this product, it's really, really thick and gelatinous in the bottom of the bottle, and that you need, like, it needs a stir every time I use it. Whereas the rust one, I can shake it for a while and the agitator comes loose. But same sort of thing, just plopping it on in different sort of patches, some of it thicker than others, and I just want to see how it dries. Now again, it's a really lovely green, it's a good a cover overlay, which might have some applications that we can use it for. But yeah, same sort of thing, putting it on in different thicknesses and just letting it dry. Now the idea of this, it should dry like a moss. So yeah, it should dry like a moss. However, I'm finding that it's not, I don't know, it doesn't seem to be doing that. Now again, as I say, it could be human error. But same as the rust, you can push this around with the water and basically bring it up off the miniature or wherever you've put it, the application, and then move it around a bit as well, which is something I really like about these paints. I've not got the verdigris, and they've got some other versions as well that I've seen, which I've not got yet, but I will be. But these were the two main ones that you've seen in a lot of videos since they first come out. There was, they were labelled as like magic in a bottle, talent straight away, and all this sort of stuff. There's a massive learning curve with these that I've noticed, and it's something I'm going to try and get used to. So because of the way it's dried and you can't really see the mossy effect, I'm adding some more in there, just neat in really thick layers. And it could just be human error, but I'm finding that the moss doesn't dry the way I'd assume it would. The rust, however, is fantastic, straight out the bottle. And now what I've got here, just for another trial, is the thick gelatinous sediment that's in the bottom of the bottle. I'm putting that on and just seeing how that would react as well. And again, it's a beautiful colour overlay, and in very, very small patches on this bit where I'm adding extra application on, it does seem to start to give like a grainy effect, which you'll see on the miniature a bit more in a bit. But yeah, it's again, it could be human error. I may not be doing it quite right, or I'm wondering if this needs multiple and just continuous layers putting on, as opposed to the rust. So it'll be something I'm gonna work with. I like the idea of using it for sort of bases and things and making those pop. Also on the miniature in a moment, you'll see I put it on the actual armour itself, and it leaves a really nice colour sort of overlay. And yeah, really interesting how that works. Now back to the brush. Now whenever I'm doing this, it's just water and a brush, and I'm just moving it around, and it seems it's really good actually. If you could do like engine parts, I'm thinking like some of the Orc sort of engines, if it's 40k, things like that, you could lay this on really thick and then push it around, and you'll get that thick rust sediment that would naturally form in like where water collects on metal, and you can almost push it to the point where you can clean it off and go almost back to the base layer, which is a really nice effect. So in terms of like the applications for the paint, I think there's a lot more here than just rust and moss. There's a lot more you can probably do with this. I like the idea that you can colour over things to give them this really disgusting gritty, because you'll see when it's fully dry, it's almost got like a texture within the paint when you move it around a lot. So especially in that point there, you get these lovely thick layers. So I'm thinking as an application for for miniatures as well, maybe using them as colours, base colours potentially. So it's these are the sort of things that I'll be messing about with in the future. But onto the miniature itself now. So I've got an old, it's an old Plague Marine that I was just trying for one of my previous that paint your style video. It was just something I was messing about with. I think they're Blight Lords or something like that. And I just thought, right, we'll try these with the Dirty Down rust. So this was something I was just messing about with for colour schemes and things. I've done sort of like a previous version of rust that I normally do, which where you put in really watered down sort of brown and orangey pigments, especially on the blade, you'll see in a moment. But now on top of this, I'm just going to put this paint on now, these Dirty Down paints, and just see how they dry. And I was pleasantly surprised by the end of it. The rust in particular is fantastic. But you'll see now the application and how it goes. Right, so you can see here on the blade itself, it's just a really thick layer straight from the bottle. Letting it dry, and then I'll go in again afterwards, and it's a lovely effect. This out of the two is, I'd recommend it for people. As I say, the moss one, for me, it's not working as I've seen advertised. But if it's a human error, it's something I'll keep going at, and I'll mention it in other videos if I do figure it out. But this rust, you put it on, and then in the really thick areas you can just add more in, and you'll see that it gives these lovely tones of different versions of brown. And then you'll go in and you can start pushing it around and moving it, and it looks really, really nice. And here I'm putting it on neat. I'm really like heavy sedimented layers underneath the armour panels and things where this rust would build up. And again, over the actual base colour, it leaves a lovely sort of colour overlay, which I think that'd be interesting to play with itself, and not just the rust effect. But yeah, going on really heavy. I'll do the same with the moss. We'll let it dry, and I'll start shifting things around with the water, and we'll just see how it goes. And then on the blade there, I'm adding more application because I want it to go from like a really thick, crusty rust right the way down to lighter, where obviously the blade's getting more use. So onto the moss green, same sort of thing, and you'll see that the way it comes out, it's a really interesting paint. I think there's a lot more we can do with this than just rust and just moss. Very similar to, if you remember when speed paints came out, and they were sort of advertised as this amazing thing that any newbie can just slap it on, and you'll create an amazing paint job. It was sort of missold, and like these, there's a lot of user error and there's a lot of practice that needs to be done. And then you look at a lot of people use speed paints now. It's an addition to sort of the arsenal of miniature painting. And I think that's really important, because it's the way, as they've been used, people are figuring things out about them. And I think this as well, it could have more applications than just as a rust effect or a moss effect or whatnot. I think there's a lot that can be done with this. I might do a miniature where I'm going to paint this all over, because I'm really interested to see how it works. I've seen some people on Instagram who've done similar things, and I think they look fantastic. And if you just get the spots of colour in there and move the pigment around, I think you get a really interesting sort of effect on a finished piece. Right, so the moss, I'm putting a very thin layer on the base. So all this had was, so as it was stuck on the base, I've just put some sprue glue on just to smooth it all out. And I just want to see how this dries. And then the same as on the armour now, almost like a half and half. So you've got the half rust, and then I'm going to put the moss on all over, really thick. In a few select areas, put even thicker clubs on, and then I'm just going to see how it dries and start pushing it around and things. Right, so while that's drying, I'm going to bring in the palette again now, because obviously different shapes can make the paint look and have different effects. And I'll just leave this sort of next to it. I think it's a really interesting paint, this. I'm going to have a good sort of practice with this and see what I can do other things with. I really enjoy the moss as a colour overlay. I think that works really well. And in some of the close-ups you'll see in the creases, it does start to dry and have that sort of mossy texture. As I say, the rust, absolutely fantastic, straight out the bottle, and it's one I definitely recommend people to give it a go. And again, here where I've put multiple applications, just again with a wet brush, just water, just pushing it around again, and it gives a really good effect. You'll see in the end of this sort of thick, crusty rust right the way down to just where the initial layer's starting to. And this is something that I think's really, really nice, because when you put a thick layer on it dries quite glossy initially. And then as soon as you start moving it around, you get these really nice variations in colour and texture, which is, for me, that's what it should all be about. It's that nothing should look pristine in a sort of grim dark sort of setting. And same here with the belly plate, with the moss, pushing that around, and then where I've put the pigments and they're all clumped together, that's where it's starting to dry more mossy. So I think with the moss, maybe you need multiple layers. Which is something that I'm going to test for future videos. But yeah, overall, really interesting product. Again, like the Pro Acryl review, if you can afford it, I think definitely get it and try it. It's something really interesting. The rust in particular, I think, is a really good paint. But what I'll do now is I'll put up the sort of glamour shots, let you have a look, have a decide for yourself. If anyone's got any tips on how to use these products as well, put them up in the comments. Maybe I'll do like a second video later on and address that and try things that people have said, because I think there's a lot of different applications we can use these for. And yeah, really interesting paint. So thank you very much for listening and watching. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Massive thank you to everyone who watched the Paint in the Wasteland. That video blew up a lot bigger than I thought it would. That's my best video to date, and I was a genuine surprise and really humbled by the fact that did so well. And there's more content like that to come. So a massive thank you for that to everyone who's supported the channel with that one. You can see there, that's these bits now. I'll do some more rotations and close-ups. The moss is starting to work in those little bits. You can see there the rust on that blade. That looks fantastic. And again, I think there's a lot of application you can do there. Overall, though, very happy with it. It's an interesting idea. I think it looks good on the Blight Lord. Be interested to see maybe a full moss and a full rust miniature with stuff pushed around and see how that comes out. But we'll do some close-up shots. You can see what you think. Let me know in the comments anything you'd like me to try with these paints. But thank you all very much for listening and watching. We'll see you on the next video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and all that stuff. And we'll see you then. Cheers.